Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Patrick O'Malley. I am the founder of ShiftChange. And for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, I just want to give a little bit of information about what ShiftChange is. It's a community for emergency and urgent care clinicians who are building something beyond the clinical shift. And whether that's a business, a side project, or a whole new path out of the bedside. We're here to share what works, to learn from each other, and to move faster together. And today we're talking about something that every single founder struggles with, which is getting your operations out of your head and into a system that actually runs. And to walk us through it, I'm joined by Gavin Scott-Miller. Gavin is a systems and workflow consultant who helps founders and small teams turn messy operations into clear, automated, scalable systems. And he specializes in Notion, which is a meeting to action workflow and the kind of integrations that keep work moving without all of the busy work. And he's known for live, practical demos that cut through the AI hype and show you exactly how to put these to use. I have worked personally with Gavin, and he has demystified and kind of broken down some of the complexity of Notion and has given me a system that I'm actually able to use. So, Gavin, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. My goal for today is pretty simple. I thought since for a lot of people, this will be the kind of first time. Lost my screen here. This will be the first time that you guys have actually looked at or worked with Notion. I'm going to kind of give like a 101, what it is, why it matters, and I do a little live demo. I think we'll have some time for that, which will be fun. So that's kind of the goal here for today to kind of go through that. We'll hop in and get started. At any point in time, if you've got any questions, definitely just feel free to interject, raise your hand, and make whatever commentary you want. And I'm happy that we can kind of chat through that. Okay, so Patrick mentioned this a little bit already, but to restate, so like I don't care who you are. I know in the medical world, it's got to be even worse because you guys are hopping from thing to meeting without a lot of time in between to organize your thoughts and do stuff. But anybody in today's day and age, in this crazy knowledge world, knowledge work world that we live in, it's impossible to organize everything. It's impossible to keep everything up to date and be able to find stuff. So I always come back to this quote from David Allen who wrote GTD, Getting Things Done. It's a great little book. It's about 20 years old. It's a little bit outdated. It talks about the Palm Pilot and some things like that. But the general concepts in there are timeless and it's really good. The quote there is, your brain's for having ideas, not holding them. And it really gets down to the heart of why everything seems so chaotic is because brains are really just not very good at remembering stuff. Even those who are like professional memorizers had to do all these different methodologies and stuff to be able to memorize large patterns of stuff. We're just not good at reminding things at particular times and places, right? So when you do that, you have a lot of this cognitive overhead, where you're trying to remember this at this specific time, or I got to remember to take the trash out on this time, and you're just remembering that all the time. And because you're spending all the time remembering stuff, it's hard to actually work on the stuff that matters to you. It's hard to be able to move stuff forward in the right direction. There's just too much stuff going on to always have to kind of remember. So that's a major problem. In pretty much everything you go to, there's all sorts of productivity gurus that are out there that all sorts of great concepts and information. One thing that I will notice, and Patrick and I actually work through this together, is it's not just like you can usually just grab somebody's off-the-shelf productivity methodology, install it in your life, and the rest of your life's hunky-dory. What we find is that everyone's got their own particularities, their brains work differently. So being able to create something that's a little bit more custom to the way that it makes sense to you is incredible. So that's where kind of Notion comes into us here. So Notion markets themselves as like an all-in-one workspace where you can keep like anything in. I will kind of talk about this in a minute, but I literally think about it in terms of like what apps can I delete from my phone and replace with a Notion app built inside of it. So you can think about all sorts of stuff. So it could be tasks, it could be notes, internal wikis, projects. It could be, habit trackers. Literally, the sky's the limit. It's a really cool piece of software. But what is interesting and good about it is the pieces that you unlock when you have everything in one system. So if any of you have worked alongside really, really segmented systems where you've got this information inside your Google Drive, and then this one in your CRM, some information's over in your HRIS platform. You got more information in QuickBooks that you got to manage, and you've got to like just manually move the same piece of data like 20 times, like every single day, all the time. And that's really frustrating. It's a waste of time. And in today's day and age, there's no need for it. So you unlock a ton of value. And it's like, oh, yeah, I actually already have that data in the system. Now, what can I do with that? And that's where the real value kind of starts shining inside Notion. Of course, you got AI stuff. 2026, every tool's got AI. Notion was really early to integrate AI into their system, and they've continued to put the pedal to the metal on increasing its value. And one of the craziest things that it can do right now is their AI tool can use Notion. So when you're asking something, it's not just like, oh yeah, I've got a floating chat window and then like the content that we're working on. It can create those tasks. It can create documents for you. It can move stuff around. It can actually utilize the system that you're using as well. So it becomes almost like a coworker in that regard. So it's pretty cool in that regard. I pay for Notion AI. It's the only AI tool that I actually pay for, and it's very nifty. So okay, so what is the Notion? Because if you download the thing, they give you a little bit of an onboarding, and it's like a get started page is kind of what you get from it. And there's some YouTube videos out there you can see. There's a lot of YouTubers out there, particularly around Notion, that have all sorts of interesting content out there. But I just kind of want to break that down. What is Notion? How does it work? Well, basically, it's a series of pages, which is think about it like a Google page, like a Google Doc, right? Where you can just type stuff. You can put photos, you can put videos, you can type content and put tables and links to other things, other websites. It's just a place to put content. Well, that you can make pages inside Notion like you would in Apple Notes or something, right? Or Google Docs. But then where it gets really interesting is the different other parts and integrations in there. So it becomes like this big old box of Legos that you have at your disposal that you can use this Lego for that and that. And then as you start creating these different systems, you start building them on top of each other. So it gets really cool. So basically, as we look through, we have pages, which is our main source, our main thing inside Notion. Inside those pages are blocks, is what they call them. And so that's where you have maybe a block of text or a block with an image in it or a block with a video, block with transcripts or meeting notes, right? Those are all the thing that's inside of the page, and they call that a block. And you can have all sorts of stuff in there again. Databases is the next thing. So the databases is where Notion gets powerful. It moves outside of a notes app or just a advanced notes app into something that's like a system, a tool that you can use. It's those databases. And basically, the best way to describe it is a database is a structured system of pages. So you have it looks like a table. We'll review some later. It looks like an Excel table, but each of the rows is a page inside Notion. And inside those pages, you can do all the stuff we just talked about. You can add content and text and all sorts of stuff inside those pages in there for you to edit and work with. But then you can also add columns, properties, right? So I like to sometimes think about when we talk about these kinds of databases with language. So you'd have the row is maybe the noun, right? It's the thing that you have. And then you have your columns, and those are adjectives or adverbs, right? Those are things that change or give information about that noun to help you get more context later on. So a database is where everything starts to get powerful. If you go open Notion and just start going, it will push you towards pages and trying to create pages and do content, which is great. It's just at that point, it's really no more than a glorified notes app. So the database is where we really start to get a lot of power and a lot of those contexts involved. And views is the final thing. So when you have a backend database, you can then create a view of that database where you're organizing that content differently. So you could take that original table and have a view that's a filtered one that maybe you sort out completed tasks, right? Or you could view it like a Kanban board or a grid or even a calendar. So you can take that set of data and view it and organize it and transform it in certain ways so that becomes valuable. So Notion's really, really flexible in that regard. Basically, if you can dream it, you can make it. And it's very, very nifty in that regard. So this is a little bit of just a quick chart that I whipped up to help demonstrate exactly what's going on inside Notion. So the kind of overarching thing is your workspace or your team space if you have multiple people in your Notion account. That's just like the bucket of stuff that's your login. That's your grouping, your folder, right? Inside that you have pages and databases. So you could have page or database. But pages could also live inside of a database, right? So you want when you're organizing stuff and when you're setting things up, you want to look about it in terms of like what pages do I need and what databases do I need, and then of course we want to look at our database views and our relations and then those blocks. So this is kind of a simple hierarchy of any Notion workspace that you would have set up. There are just a series of databases and pages that we again previously just talked about. Okay, so again, when we're talking about Notion, I like to think about it as replace my apps, get rid of a certain app. When I was first onboarding onto Notion myself and learning it and kind of diving in deep, I would literally view that as what apps can I go in and delete from my phone? So, like a perfect example is I had a habit tracker app on my phone. It was a bespoke app. It was on its own. It wasn't connected to anything. I think it was called Streaks from the iOS, right? And the whole point of it is you just check a box and say what habits that you're trying to track that you got done. Did you exercise? Did you wake up in the morning and read your Bible and get that done, right? Like what did you do that you're intended to do? What percentage of that did you get done? Well, if you think about that, that's actually just a series of days with properties. What did you do and what didn't you do? So I was able to create a database that had one row or one page per day with a series of checkboxes, and those checkboxes are my habits. So you just check the checkboxes when you want, right? So now you have a habit tracker that's replaced the functionality of that other app in 1 minute, but it's inside Notion. So you have less apps on your phone, less clutter, less things vying for your attention. But also now we can actually do stuff with that data. So in Notion, you can create charts. You can link those days to other things. So for example, one of my habits was to wake up and do a journal every day. Well, Notion's great for pages. It's great for notes and documents. It's a great place to have a journal. So I would keep my journal inside Notion, but the creation of that journal page would check off my habit, right? Because the system was robust enough to have all of those pieces in there. So we could create a very simple integration inside the workspace where, hey, if I do my journal, it checks off my habit there for me. So that's a really good example of both how we can start finding the value of the data integrated into each other, but also finding value in deleting other apps and systems. Particularly when we start talking about business context, this becomes exponentially more important. Personal like knowledge management is like, man, it's awesome. I don't have to keep track of everything in like 30 apps. But like in business workflows, that becomes highly powerful. So when you have an employee database, but then you also have a list of projects and a list of tasks and a list of notes, all of a sudden, instead of having the docs over in Google Docs, and then you've got your tasks over in a task tracker like Monday.com or Asana, and then we've got our HRIS, which is the only place where we've got all the lists of our employees, or maybe you've got a Google Doc somewhere with all the employees' names. It's all in one system. And you can start tagging those things and relating them to each other and seeing a list of stuff for each employee if you want, right? With those views we talked about earlier. So that's where we can really start to create a lot of value as we get into that. We can also find some value in looking at, again, we're talking about like what apps can we remove and what things can we do. We want to also look at what we don't have to retype in 1,000 times, right? Because Notion's really good at interconnecting stuff. So if you had a Google Doc that you had to type into, your Apple Notes, and then you typed it over here in your Meeting Notes app, and those three things are not connected whatsoever, you're redoing work a ton of time, right? Okay, so this is an example of what I'm talking about with the replace my apps. This isn't actually demonstrating any real system. This is just totally example shake to show you that you can create these connections between things. So what each of our nodes are here would be a database. So it would be a organized set of things, right? So you have tasks. So I've got notes, resources. So that could be like clipped articles that you find online or like videos you want to find, right? Meeting notes, projects, and then areas. which is a para methodology that we'll talk about a little bit later. These are all databases that you could maintain, and each of those would have a list of pages. So, in your task database, you could have, hey, take out the trash. I need to call my one employee and have our performance evaluation with them. I need to do my yearly taxes. So they could be personal, professional tasks, right? They're there. But now that they're in there, let's just take our performance review, for example. I have a task for a performance review. Well, that's going to end up being some kind of a meeting with my employee, right? So we're going to meet, we're going to chat about how their performance has been, and you're going to probably record that information using whatever AI transcribing meeting recording tool of flavor of the week that you use. You're going to capture that, right? Notion even has one built inside of it for meeting notes transcriptions, and I use it all the time, and I love it because I don't, or it doesn't require additional tools. Again, my whole thing is use less platforms, spend less money on other platforms, integrate everything into one system, right? So I might have a performance evaluation task that I create a meeting note on. So now I can link those together and see the information. Leaving that meeting note, I have more tasks now. They now ask for a raise. They need some time off on these times. I need to go check to make sure that they can have that time off, right? So now I've got a couple of tasks that come out of that meeting notes. Well, the tasks can be related to meeting notes, and then the tasks that come out of the meeting notes get related back. So I could go look for meeting note tasks by going back to look at a particular meeting note, or I could have that same piece of information found in the task database, right? So you can find that same stuff anywhere you look for it, and it's all interrelated. Projects is another really good example. So let's say you have an initiative you're working on, or like a business you're launching, or a side hustle you're trying to work on. That could be a project, a collection of things you're doing. You have tasks in there, you have notes in there, you have clipped articles and research in there, you have meeting notes with people in there. All of those stuff can relate back to your projects, and you have one page you go to of your projects, and you can see all of those relational pages and all the work you've done, completely undependent on what app it was in, because it's all inside Notion, right? So that's a really good example of like why the value of Notion actually gets there when you really dive in. So it's all about the what we can do with these views here in a minute. Okay, here's some examples of some tools we could build inside Notions, or actually, this happens to be, other than one of them, a list of tools I have actually built and utilize daily and weekly inside Notion. So in the personal context, you've got like notes and documents and journals, just stuff we're writing down, series of text or pieces of information we need to keep track of, right? Simple. Tasks, to-dos, stuff I got to get done. Projects or goals, again, which would be groupings of tasks or forward-thinking things we want to do. Habit tracking, talked about a couple times now. A learning database. So I maintain a database of all of the books that I own and read. I like to do that. I have some goals for myself to read a whole bunch of books every year. A couple years back, I actually was able to read 50 books in the course of a year, which was a really big milestone for me personally. And I want to keep track of that. I wanted to actually see what I was reading over time, month over month. Oh, that's really weird. June is actually really high time of book reading. Why was that? Oh, actually, it's because I'm mowing the lawn, so I can put in an audiobook. So when we're mowing the lawn a bunch, I have a bunch more time for audiobook listening, and I crunch through a bunch more books, right? So we can have some stuff like that in there. And again, we're talking about our interconnection. This is just a thing I thought about on the fly. Um, that book database is connected back to our project, our goal, right? So I have a goal of reading 50 books in a year. Well, that can tie back to whether or not I was exceeding that based on that other database we're talking about. You can have bookmarks and quick links. With today's day and age, everything's flying around. It's hard to keep track of everything, and just bookmarking stuff in Chrome can sometimes be not well organized enough. You can do that. Clips and articles. You find an interesting post on LinkedIn. You find an interesting article you want to reference later or read later because you don't have time now. Are you using the read later inside Safari or inside Chrome? Or are you using a third-party app like Pocket or I think it's Readly, I think is one of them is called. If you're using apps like that, you have to go think about looking at that. You have to go to that. It's not where you're working. It's not related to the projects you're doing stuff on. It's all separate. So professional, meeting notes is a huge one right now. Notion has built-in meeting note transcription, but you can also actually import stuff from other tools. So for example, Patrick and I worked on creating an integration where every time he has a meeting note inside Fathom, he uses Fathom AI for meeting note recording, that meeting transcription and the recording gets submitted through Zapier automation and shows up in Notion as a page. And then we can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. We can keep track of that. We can do things on it. We can have AI play with that. We have all sorts of different things we can do and keep track of that. Again, when we get really clever with this, if we did things like one of the next ones on the list, which is having a light sales platform, like a light CRM, you can develop a CRM inside Notion. It's pretty simple. And you can write those to the meeting notes. So you could say, I have a customer, maybe my customer is Patrick. I could go to my Patrick page and see a list of all the meetings we've had together, all the tasks I've ever done for him, and all the meeting notes and documents we've seen all together in one place. There's a wiki and a knowledge base. Wiki is awesome inside Notion. It's absolutely phenomenal. Keeping track of documents and SOPs makes it really lightweight and really develops a culture of documentation for those inside your team. You can do team management. I already talked about that, like a light HR information system platform. So like think about a light, just really light touch. Here's my employee list. Here's where everybody lives. Here's their phone number and email, that kind of stuff. Not so much like legal documents or like the signing or signatory stuff, but a light platform. Marketing and social media calendars. I've had multiple clients utilize Notion to keep track of what they're sending out to what platforms when. So it's a whole marketing thing because you can have a database, you can tag if it's going to Meta or Instagram or LinkedIn, what the post is, the actual content, including the photos and videos of that post, just are inside the page, and you can put a date on there and say when it's launching. So all of a sudden you have this really robust system that's integrated back in your tasks and projects inside Notion that can help launch all that stuff. Invoice generation and billing. I actually generate all of my invoices for my consulting work inside Notion. I just keep track of a page with a simple template, paste in my hours, generate it as a PDF, and that's actually how I send out all that. Keep tracking of all of my invoicing and billing inside Notion. I end up on the end of the year, I do my taxes. I just open my Notion database, and I have every transaction I have inside there. So I don't even use QuickBooks or anything for instead of Notion. As your company gets a little bit bigger, you're gonna want something better than Notion for that. It's just not as robust for a lot of the integrations and things like that, but a light one can work for that, right? And then one I came up with for the purpose of this that might be helpful is patient event or incident log. So like if you had a problem in one of your practices, you could keep track of that and maybe look at trends over time or see if there's particular incidents being logged with particular individuals. All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking TED Talk style and open this up for us to kind of chat a little bit here now. This is live demo time, and I'll show you guys physically using the software, a couple of things here. And since there's only a couple of us on here, I'll just love to hear from you guys if you guys have any examples of like, hey, can we build this? How would I build that? If you guys have suggestions, definitely hit me up.
And Gavin, maybe we can get you to use the AI thing down in the bottom right hand corner with some stuff as well, which is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, yeah. So if anybody doesn't have ideas, we'll noodle around, definitely interject. So this is an example. I've just made a new page inside Notion. It's blank, right? I can have shift change demo page, right? Inside here, we have blank pages, right? So you can just start typing stuff in here. You can do text, plain text. If you click on the plus button or do a forward slash, you can see a list of all the different types of stuff you can do. Lists and toggles and pages and more text and images, dividers and tables, and it's all sorts of stuff you can add in here. You can even integrate into other platforms, generate images with AI and all sorts of cool stuff like that. But here's where we get really powerful is you have an AI chatbot on the side, just like you would, just like you'd expect. And this AI chatbot has access to all of the newest models. Like when as they get released, they're inside Notion like in a day or two. Fable was literally released yesterday, about midday, and it's already inside Notion. It's a new
Wow.
model from Anthropic. It's currently off because like apparently it sends data back to Anthropic, so I'm not sure about that one, but that's what it's here for. So right, to this tool, it can answer general purpose knowledge, look up something on the web for you. You can use it just like you would Claude or ChatGPT to ask general stuff in your life and in the world. But more than that, it can use Notion. So I could actually go in here right now and say, create a table in this page, which um, outlines the main coolest features of Notion. I'm going to use a smaller model just so it goes a little bit quicker here. So again, it's going to go through, look up something on Notion's website, try to find what the coolest features are, give its opinion, and it's going to insert a table here for us, which is a really nifty feature. This agent also has the context of your whole Notion workspace. So all your notes, all the meeting notes, everything it knows about you, it's pre-programmed. You can pre-program all sorts of other stuff that it can do, and it's really nifty. So it's already created it for us here, a table. Um, Obviously, ChatGPT and Claude can make a table for you, and you can paste them in. So why is this better? Well, this is where you're working. This is your table. This is your document you're working on. It's right here where you're physically working, right when you need it, right? And you can continue to work on that and work through different things and iterate on it, and it can build on top of it over your live data set. You could supply it a table that you already have exist, select the content, and now that's context for the agent that you can tell it to adjust. So it can use Notion very well, like very well. So that's a really cool example of that. I'm gonna show to kind of demonstrate a little bit further. I'm gonna make a really simple table inside Notion for you guys to a database. I'm sorry, to show you like tasks, how that would work. So I'm gonna go in here and make a new page, a sub page, and we're gonna make a database. There's one right here at the bottom. I'm gonna do blank because I'm the Notion dev guy, right? But you can use AI or a bunch of templates. There's a whole market out there for templates. I even previously was trying to sell a couple templates out there. It's a really cool thing with the templates. Again, it's not going to be custom for you. It's not going to make sense to you and how you work. But those are out there. They do exist. I'm going to make a task database, right? So again, we talked about this earlier, what the tables are. So we've got a table here, but each of these rows is a page. So just like we looked at the other one with the table and the text and all that, that's what each of these are. It's a page. You can add properties, however, to this. So you can see text and number, a drop-down selector, a status, a date, person, files and URLs, checkbox, phone numbers, emails, relations, and formulas. This is where you can start building apps. Because again, if you have task database, you could make another database for notes and create a relational connection between those two, the tasks and the notes. And now that work is now connected together. So for the purpose of what we're doing here, I'll just add a status and a date. Simple as that. And this to demonstrate. So I'm going to say I need to take out the trash. This is one task. And I need to do a performance eval as another task. By default, it's created statuses for us, not started, in progress, and done, right? Simple, but if you have, additional needs, maybe you have one that's like, well, this is a task that's blocked or needs reviewed, right? You can just add some additional statuses for you and your team to utilize. Easy peasy. And then as you come in here, you can just start saying, hey, this project is a status, or I got to take the trash out. It's every Friday. And the performance eval is just due before the end of the month. Okay. So now I've come in here and I've started added that. These are pages. It's just like any old task database or task app that you'd ever see, right? Except for now we can go in and click on any of those and that page can open. So inside that page, we can do whatever we want. We can type text in here. We can do an image, right? That can go in here and generate a photo for us or something. We can add anything we need inside that page, and the context for whatever it is we're doing is right there live inside the page. So that's like a highly simple overview of what these databases are and how they function. Just a series of pages. So as we look at that, we can get really fun and clever with it with views. So these have all the different types of views that Notion can see. So for example, a good example here would be a calendar, right? So quickly I can just make a calendar view, and now I can see all those tasks that we just put dates on in a calendar. And this is what helps me plan out my week and go, oh, I need to remove that, take out the trash down to next Wednesday instead, actually, right? Because something has changed. And so we can start
And,
going in here and editing and changing stuff for sure.
and then it changes, like if you go back to a different view, it changes it accordingly with whatever view you are. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So the properties are all just a piece of data, and we're viewing that data differently. Yeah. And then we
Okay.
can even do cool stuff too. So we can see, um, let's say I could go in here and I'd like to see that status live inside the calendar. So I could actually just click right into that and see the status as well. Or maybe I wanted to see some additional piece of context. Again, earlier I mentioned social media calendar. This is how we do that, right? You'd make
Okay.
a database, you'd add a date to it, you'd add a status to it, you'd add where am I posting it? LinkedIn, Meta, Instagram, right? Like you'd add that information in there, and then you could see that here on an event, and you'd be able to really easily plan it all out. And even more
So
than that,
with
yeah, I
that
can
being said, if for me personally, I think I've shared this with you. I mean, this is just daunting. It's like, well, where in the heck do you figure all this out? But this is an area where you can go into the AI assistant and say, "This is what I'm trying to do. Please help me create this," and it will go in and start doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's actually do that here. I'm gonna go and just go to a new page in here for the example's sake. I'm here at a blank page, and I'm just gonna go to the Ask AI. Actually, I'm gonna do the database button and ask the AI here. I want a social media calendar database. Here in a minute, we will receive one, whatever its opinion of a social media calendar database is, right? And here in a couple of minutes is going to go through, it's going to define, it's going to guess what properties we want to see. It'll create some views for us that it thinks is relevant and helpful for us here inside Notion as it goes.
So, Chris, if you're able to chime in, are you doing anything with a social media content calendar at all?
Very rudimentary work with my VA. I've had like scheduled tasks and posts in the past, but nothing recently.
Okay.
Very, just very disorganized.
I can relate. But now I've got Arms, who is much more adept and able to do this type of stuff. All right, so it's still working. It's just kind of walking out, showing what the steps are, creating the database on the current page.
Yeah, it'll take a minute here to generate that a little bit of a larger task. While
Okay.
it's doing that, I'll hop it back over to our task database and look at a couple more things we could do. Right. So again, we could have a calendar view. You could view it like gallery, which is a nice view. You get this kind of visual representation. Excellent for like clipped articles because you can see like the content of that inside there or the photo of it that was viewed. You can create forms and collect data from external sources as well, which is really excellent. You can create dashboards and charts, which is really good as we go on. Lists and Kanban boards. So we can do all this stuff. So we can have a Kanban board that you can drag your tasks between statuses, right? We can do all that kind of stuff with the database. So the idea I'm showing you this is to get the juices flowing about, hey, once we have data in a database, we can kind of build what we want off of it. So if we're thinking about apps, we're thinking about a task app, right? We're thinking about a social media calendar app, right? We're really doing a lot of that stuff there. And again, with our integrated Notion in here, I'm going to go ahead and have something do a little bit of something fun while we go here. I want you to schedule tasks in this database for 5 social media posts for a emergency medical physician's clinic. Um, right. Create the cards and draft our posts. So I'm just going to have this guy start going on there. I obviously didn't give it a lot of context, didn't tell it about who my company is. I didn't tell it about things my customers care about. I didn't give it anything. So these are not going to be valuable pieces of data that it's going to return to us. But I'm just going to show this to demonstrate. It's going to go and do research. It's going to go figure out what LinkedIn posts about should look like. It's going to actually create the cards for me inside Notion so I can actually see those. I didn't actually tell it, but I can tell it here in a minute if it doesn't do this. I'm going to tell it to schedule them out for me, and it's going to have actually drafted all of those posts for me all at the same time, right? So it will be something to at least demonstrate the power of that tool. While that's guys loading, I'm going to hop back over here to our social media content page that we were previously looking at. And I can't click on this button because it's too small. There it is. All right, I'm going to view this guy's full width. So now we actually see this guy finished creating a social media calendar just from this prompt. Gave me a social media calendar. And we have here a calendar. And again, we can create new pages in here. It's got different views. You got a pipeline that it's established. It thinks that you need these different statuses for your content. Um, it's got the platform that you're going to post it at with some options already here. Your type of your content. So is it a picture? Is it a video, a reel? The pillar. So what's the kind of point of it? Doesn't know anything about who we are, but there you go. The status, the publish date, maybe a little approval thing. You've got your links to your assets, a call to action, and a caption. So it's got a little bit more than probably we even need. You could go in here and say, I don't need that. I can delete that property and get rid of some stuff or organize it around. But now all of a sudden we do have a social media system that's lightweight and robust enough for us to be actually able to use it.
And
Maybe.
like one thing, so we Arms and Chrismar and I, we've kind of built something out. I believe it's in our Google Drive, which is great because that's where everything else lives. But in theory, could you take a Google document and say, hey, this is what we're using now. We want to consolidate this all into Notion. Please take this document and replicate what we have on Google, but do it in Notion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you could, you giving it your voice, the way
Yeah.
that you guys talk, your brand guides, that kind of stuff, in order to like speak the way that you guys speak. If you already had like a set of data, like you already had a calendar of the next couple of weeks post, you could drop that in there and it would be able to create those pages for you as well. So
Okay.
that's all the kinds of stuff that it can, yeah, it could totally do all that kind of stuff inside Notion.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. I see a couple of chats in here. Let me uh
So, Chris, with the medico legal work that you do, you would come in and hear accounting, CRM with bank accounts, do. Yeah. How could you see this being helpful for you with APC consultant? Is there anything that you want to, kind of get some insights on?
I could see like just the minimization of using other pieces of software and having I love the idea of having everything all in one space, and accomplishing the social media sort of calendar and like just getting everything in one space and be able to work with it and perfect it, because I feel like you're learning and utilizing all these different platforms at the same time, and you never really perfect it. We're medical people, we're not sort of technology people, and just sort of understanding how to navigate that and just perfect that, just that everyday tasks. I'm so my business is the medical legal consulting, but I'm in academia as well, so I teach. That's my sort of full-time W-2 job in addition to clinical work. So like it's so nice to sort of keep organized in one way, and I'm using a million different platforms and I can't stand it. And
yeah.
none of them are really truly talking to one another.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of like having one space for it all.
Yeah. So, in kind of what you were talking about there, yeah, there's all sorts of things. Like if you're teaching courses, you could create a database of the courses or like the classes that you're teaching. And you could have another database for the sessions, the time, your schedule when you're doing stuff, or even the data that you're actually doing when actually teaching the coursework. So maybe your homework for a homework tracker or something like that. And those could all be interconnected to each other. So we actually now have two databases that I can actually show this a little bit. So we've got our task database, which it finished its job over here and created however many LinkedIn posts. I didn't tell it to do dates, but it did it anyways for us, which is awesome. So it's scheduled out these posts for us. And if you click into there, it's wrote, very generic stuff. It's not going to be excellent, but hey, that's in there. So you could go in there and do that. You could have it generate photos or do whatever it needed to do for us here. Yeah.
I
So you can
love
go
the
first.
idea, like just like so oftentimes I will sporadically manually post like cases, like case a little offshoot of cases that I've reviewed, and like teaching points, learning points. I love the idea of sort of doing like blinded, protected cases and just scheduling them for submission. Because oftentimes myself, I'm connected with attorneys on LinkedIn and whatnot, or on Instagram, or both, and sort of them seeing me post about cases shows my level of expertise and professionalism. Um, yeah, and that ultimately results in that's my that and getting cases, which is the business. So I love the idea of sort of scheduling this and organizing in that regard. It sounds like it can like schedule it. So I think you just have to program it and figure out a way that you could put certain cases in there. I guess my other concern is the accuracy of it and the reliability of it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting into some really fun stuff here. So there are automations inside Notion pre-built in. So you can say like, hey, when XYZ thing happens, a date occurs or the status becomes a certain status, like you mark it as approved or something, right? Then do something. So we can edit stuff inside Notion. So like here's a good example. If you complete a task, or if you complete a project, you could check off all the tasks all at once, right? So you could do things like that with the relational connections. You could send people notifications or emails even. You could send Slack notifications. And this is the really powerful one, is send a webhook, which is in the automation world, that's basically a way of saying talk to another automation tool. So I could have Notion talk to Zapier, or have Notion talk to Make.com, or have Notion talk to Power Automate, or whatever. And then you can do something else, right? So this would be an example of, you could have Notion talk to Zapier, which makes a post in LinkedIn for you based on the content that you've mapped over. Like that's completely
Wow.
plausible workflow to actually do. You could plop in your full case study, you could have it look at it, you could have it create a summarization of that, and then that summarization would become the LinkedIn post. Like that's a workflow you could literally set up. It would be not even all that difficult in today's day and age to do that. So yeah, your brain's in the exact right track on all that, which is really cool. I want to show two things real quick to show the kind of close a loop on the power of the Notion pages and how they connect. So we've got our social media calendar and our task database. These may not be perfect ones to connect, but to demonstrate this, I do want to show you what a relation connection looks like. So in a database, you can say what another database that it's connected to. And I'm just going to, for now, not program that anyways. I'm just going to create them. And now I have these existing, right? So I'm gonna add just a test page here just to demonstrate. Um, uh, okay, so I'm gonna add a couple test pages here to the database just to show you. Then if I'm here, I could say, oh, maybe this is a task for one, right? That becomes, why didn't it show up? Okay, we'll do it this way just to demonstrate. I'm going to just connect a couple pages here, and you can do this automatically. We're doing this pretty manual right now. But hopping back over here, you see we've now made a connection between this card and that card. These are now related to each other. So you could have a system where you say, whenever I make a new social media post, on the day of the post, create a task for me to go and post it, or to create a task for me to go call somebody or do something. And that page would be related to it. So you could go to this and see a list of all of those tasks and databases, and actually be able to see additional information on it too, or quickly navigate to it, create connections on that. We could even make a system where you could view an action on some of those things together. Instead of building that, I'll actually just hop over to some of the other systems I have to show you a live demo of this on my workspace. So I use Notion a ton, as should not surprise any of you at all. And I have my entire life programmed inside this thing. I call it my Life OS, my life operating system. And I've got tasks and projects and all sorts of nifty 250 fun stuff that I build inside of here. So what we're looking at right now is a dashboard that I have, series of quick links and buttons. I've got some of my, I call them quests. They're my large things to do there. Different focus areas for the week or whatever. That's all in here. And so these are all views of the same, of other databases that are inside my Notion, filtered down to the stuff that I care about and I want to see. So I could come in here and I could look at projects, for example. Let's just go in here and do that. And I'm going to actually find the project I made for generating this webinar right here. So I've got this ShiftChange webinar project. So this is a Notion page inside of a Notion database. It is exactly as you would expect. It's just a series of this is content down here. I could type text in here. I could do an image. Everything you'd expect that would already happen inside here, I can do inside this page. But you guys are noticing these little views of databases. So this is a project in my project database, which has a task database and a notes database related to it. So in my system, this is a simple system of it. I have my project, which was, hey, prepare for the ShiftChange webinar. Chris Marr wanted my intro for making your guys' social media post. So I had a task for that. And then I had a task for myself to finish writing the slide deck for us, right? For us to go through. And so those were two tasks I had. Another thing I have in here is the slide deck. So a little fun thing I didn't tell you guys about is the slide deck that we actually had. Surprise, surprise, it's a Notion page. I built it inside Notion. So the slide deck itself, this was my little magic surprise, is actually just a Notion page. So I built this inside Notion. I wrote this by using text and images and charts. I all wrote this out as a single Notion page. And then we've come in here and presented it as a PowerPoint, a slide deck. So this page here, this actual slide deck that we were working through was a project the whole time. And it was inside my project and I could find that. So if I'm working on this webinar, I could go here, see my tasks, see my related notes. If I had a meeting about that I've transcribed and kept track of, that meeting would be related into this as well. So you can see all of that here kind of in one major spot, and you get these really nifty views inside that. So that's kind of the long short of that on why those interconnected relations work and how those tables and stuff work really well together.
That's, it's mind blowing. It's overwhelming. It's daunting. And I think, Gavin, if you could read Chris's comment here, I think this is probably what many of us feel when we're looking at something like this. It's, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But how do you get to a level of proficiency so that you can actually harness the power and the potential that this has? I mean, it seems like you need to lock yourself in a hotel room for a week in order to get there.
It is definitely daunting when you look at it because, again, when you open Notion, you get a blank page, right?
Yeah.
You get nothing in there. And it can definitely be really difficult as you sit there and try to go, where do I start? I am, as the time goes on and more time that I work with different clients and customers, you're right. No one has the time to lock themselves in a hotel for the weekend and sit there and talk about, let's do nothing but learn Notion for a while. No one has the time for that. My suggestion is it's the same way you eat an elephant, small bites, chew fast. So you start taking things one at a time, whatever makes sense. So what's your biggest pain point right now? Is it I can't track all of the social media stuff? Start with the social media calendar, right? And then once you're in there and you go, all right, I want to get rid of my task database, just add the task database in and just do one thing at a time. And so at some point, you'll start building those habits, you'll start building those routines, you'll start understanding how Notion works. You'll watch a couple of YouTube videos, you'll ask AI a couple of times how to do stuff, and you'll start to build those habits and those routines as time goes on, and you'll become more and more comfortable. At some point, you may hit some boundaries there and okay, now I'm looking at this multi-leveled interconnection system. Like, for example, Chris, you mentioned having case studies that convert into a case study, integration tool that can convert right indirectly into LinkedIn or whatever. Okay, now we're talking about several layers of automation. We're talking about probably an AI agent in the mix, and we're talking about automation tools with Zapier and even third-party tools involved, right? So we're now talking about a layered approach of something. yeah, maybe reach out to a Notion consultant like myself. That's why I'm obviously here to sell myself here. But I think you really can do a lot of that early stuff there with committing to I want to learn this thing and see if it works for me, especially with the AI in there, being able to build stuff for you, and then a couple of manual tweaks as you're using it is where our value really comes, right? So. You could go today, I'm sure, and download a host of social media management apps, like the guaranteed flood. Back in the day when I was doing this, there was one called Hootsuite that would do this. But I'm sure that there's all sorts of ones nowadays that exist. So you could go off the shelf and go pick up one that's a robust tool. But it's precisely how they have developed it and no different. Most of them will be entirely uncustomizable, and the ones that are require, again, a degree in order to do that. Even though Notion does feel like it's overwhelming, the one thing I will say about it is technically still a no-code tool. It requires
Hmm.
no coding ability. Now, again, if you want to do like nifty automations and stuff every once in a while, you're talking about a formula or something. But this is just a series of clicking and making a database, adding the properties which you desire, or editing them and moving on. So one of the really nice and nifty things about Notion is you can create additional properties, and as you use the system and you go, man, I really wish it had this. Hit the plus button, add the property, right? So, or I use these statuses, and really all I care about is checked or unchecked. Like I don't care whether or not it has all these statuses. Well, add your checkbox and you're moving through, right? So it allows you to be flexible, and as the system that you're working through changes, so the operational processes change, you can just build a Notion system that just fits right into what you're building. So that is a thing that's really nice about it is as you become more comfortable, again, small bites chew fast. You start building stuff, you can start putting stuff on top of each other and on top of each other and on top of each other. And the farther that goes, the more valuable your system is going to become.
And Chris, I think, I'll text you Gavin's information, but he's, also inside of ShiftChange. I sent you his LinkedIn account or profile. But that guy, Joe Belezzo, who uses Notion religiously for all of his medico legal stuff, maybe just take a look at some of his LinkedIn posts where he walks through that and shows, and it may stimulate some ideas on how he is using it as a medico legal expert witness. May just be helpful to kind of see the use case given the fact that it's in the same space that you're working.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing presentation. I got smoke coming from my head, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Man, you've absolutely operationalized it, and you know, I look at this and I'm even more overwhelmed because I think about the capabilities of it, and I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start taking small bites.
Yeah, and my 2 cents is really just start at something that you feel would be low impact or is really high friction right now. So, like, if it's really high friction, a lot of the clients that I end up working with are medium-sized businesses who their biggest point of friction is no one knows what everyone else is doing. So
Mm.
it's a lot based around task management. And then so we build a task database, we build a projects database, and we everyone understands tasks and projects, and we get that thing integrated, right? Then the next thing that follows is no one's following systems. So we add a wiki on top of that and start writing down the processes and the SOPs. And then we start developing that, right? So again, just really starting with wherever the friction is for you. I know it takes more introspection when we're talking about solopreneur stuff or like side gig kind of stuff. It takes a little bit more introspection about what that hard stuff is. But it really is a matter of just saying, where do I think I could have some value here for me and my life? Is it that I can't keep track of my projects? Let's make a projects database. If it can't keep track of my meetings, I'm in meetings all the time, and I never know the follow-ups. I need to ask something to a AI agent quickly. Maybe I make a meeting notes database. Meeting notes is one of those things inside Notion that's absolutely phenomenal. and allows you to see not only particular information given on a given customer or something, you can ask questions to your database for customer by customer. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can do as you set up and you start making those interconnected relations for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, for the recording's sake, I guess that was the purpose of that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to walk you through or spend some time or just do a little bit of like light touch stuff is a great place to start.
And I'll say again to toot Gavin's horn a little bit. We would, have a call. I gave him access to my Notion account, so he was able to kind of take things over and build out what I really needed. So a couple of hours of his time was able to save me 30 or 40, yeah, in the grand scheme of things. And then we would have a follow-up call. Hey, how does this look? What doesn't jive? We can change it around. We can, look at things a little bit differently. And then just kind of working side by side, sharing screens and kind of going through it. So, another thing that could be done, I guess, is, if you're in Claude or ChatGPT, hey, I'm getting ready to start working with Gavin. I'm a newbie when it comes to Notion. Ask me 20 questions that will help me be able to communicate with Gavin and have him build out exactly what it is that I need. Ask me what my pain points are, where are the areas that I'm spending a lot of repetition and I'm going through and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And then, the output would be a document that I could share with Gavin, and then he would be able to kind of follow that and go through it. So, utilizing AI to help you uncover the areas where Notion could really help you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Good thought process.
All right. So, Gavin, thank you. This has been wonderful. It has been helpful, insightful, and we all know that you are here to help us out. And I truly appreciate you and your presence here inside of ShiftChange. And anybody who is watching this replay, Gavin is a ShiftChange member. So, if you want to reach out to him, feel free to do so. We'll put the replay link and some information inside of ShiftChange here within the next day or two. If there's anything that I can do to help you out, please reach out. Gavin, I know that you feel the same way. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you inside the community.
Thanks, guys.